All right, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Let me know if you can hear me. We're waiting for Bobby to show up. He said he'd be here within the next few minutes. But I hope you guys are doing well tonight. Now, hey Tim, good to see you, man. If I look this way, it's because I'm looking at the screen that we've set up so that I can see the comments and everything like that. Now, good. Everybody hears me loud and clear. That's good. I'm glad the audio is good. Hey everybody. Hey Yo Joe. Hey Ty, hey Ken. Let's see. Venkman, hello. Jesus, hello. Kevin, hello. Bjorn, hello. Carlos, hello. Colt, hello. Scuba, Laser Pants. All right. We're going to be talking about, hey Aaron, thank you for being here. Aaron Harper is in the chat. Lio Convoy in the chat. Foster in the chat. Fox Mulder is in the chat. He wants to believe. Adrian. Yeah, sorry, I have to look here. I can't. Melinda's trying to direct me which camera. Michael, Keith. Let's see. Thunder, Fernando, Kenny, Zantara, Captain Glam, Blue Hero, McDowell. I could do this all night. PD Dubs, John, Soda. All right. Hey David. Hey Nicholas. Hey Vem. Jason. So what we're going to be talking about with Bobby tonight when he arrives, for those of you that aren't aware, Bobby used to be a Hasbro action figure designer for several years, and then after he moved on to greener pastures, he discovered that the Action Force brand, which he'll talk about more when he's here for the interview, had kind of just been abandoned. It was like the island of misfit trademarks, and it had just been left to chance. And so he decided that he would pick it up and keep going with it because he didn't want to see it disappear into the ether. But what I wanted to talk to Bobby about tonight, because I know he's been making the rounds on different social media channels talking about, we have him. We have him here. He is here.
What's
Bobby, how
up?
are you?
I'm good.
Good.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Great, thanks. Thanks for
I
having me
was
on.
just telling everybody a little bit. I need to move over because it's clear that I'm getting cut off by my own camera. I was just telling everybody about how you didn't want to see the Action Force trademark die on the island of misfit names and labels. That's as far as I got. But I was about to tell everybody on the chat. Everybody, first of all, let me introduce you to Bobby Vala of Valaverse, the guy who has grabbed the baton for Action Force from falling into a lava pit off of a rope bridge, and he is running it to the other side. Now, we're going to talk about a lot of things in this this stream tonight. One of which will be Action Force, of course, but we're also going to be talking about military toys in general, where we've come from, where we're going. I have a lot of questions to ask Bobby about that, but I want to give Bobby an opportunity to sort of start the conversation a little bit. Just tell us a little bit about Valaverse, and as I was sort of starting with how you got started, but just give everybody a background into how all this kind of came about.
Sure, sure. Well, first, thank you, Michael, for having me on the Retro Blasting live stream. Thank you to all the Retro Blasting listeners out there tuning in tonight. I'm very honored and happy to be on the live stream tonight. So, basically, kind of the Cliff Notes version is Valaverse is my first foray into my own company. I've spent over 10 years in the toy industry, almost 7 of them with Hasbro. And now I have the opportunity to, do my own thing. And I created my company Valaverse and my flagship line Action Force, the revived Action Force or rebooted Action Force, if you want to call it, is going to be the first line, and it's currently in production. It's set to ship out sometime this spring, so we're almost there. So it's been going great. A lot of great fans of the line so far. It's been a blast for me because I just love doing toys, and especially toys that I can kind of control and create and do the story. So it's nice that I've created this IP that's toys and figures, but it's also more than that, and it's expanded into comics now and possibly a movie down the road. So it's really exciting getting that all together. And it is pretty much my favorite genre, which is military. So that's, when I set out to start my company and do this line, I knew right away that military was the genre I wanted to tackle with this line. Not only just because I love it, but for many reasons, strategic reasons, a gap in the marketplace kind of thing. But I'm glad that it all worked out because the military genre is so important to me.
The unique thing that I've observed about your foray, your venture into this, is that unlike a lot of I guess what you'd call fans, I don't want to say makers, but fan enthusiasts of toys and toy properties, is that, and I would include myself in this if I was ever to start out on a venture like this, is that you kind of go in having to learn as you go. Whereas you, on the other hand, have the unique background of already having been an action figure designer. So you kind of already know the landscape. And so the images that we've seen coming out of the Valaverse website and the various social media groups, I don't know how to describe it except to say, like, wow, that's like I mean, the confidence that's infused into these images of these action figures. It's like, whoa, this is pro. Like, this is so. What I wanted to get at is, did that help give you the confidence to even attempt this? Like, was that why you attempted it? Is because you already had the background?
It's kind of like a little of everything. I know that when I got laid off from Hasbro and I was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do next, I obviously wanted to stay in the toy industry. But then a friend of mine was pushing me like, hey, you should. I know that a lot of people have done their own thing, started their own companies, have been very successful with it. So I thought, okay, it's definitely a route, but I was really nervous about it because, the other people that have started their own companies are teams of people and it was just me. So I was, just nervous because like that's a big undertaking. That's designing everything, and not like when I was at Hasbro, I was just a designer. I managed the product kind of from start to finish. Seeing the samples and things like that, but I didn't know anything about running a company. So that was the part that I knew nothing about. So it was good in a sense that yes, I had the design and the toy knowledge and manufacturing knowledge, but it was also kind of a hit the ground running kind of thing. Because I was like, well, what do you do to start a company? So I just Googled small business in Rhode Island, and it turned out that they had a small business association, and they gave classes for people wanting to start a business. So I took a class and learned what I had to do and set up a tax ID number and that sort of thing. All the stuff I didn't know about, and then bookkeeping and things like that. And there's so much more to it. A lot of people ask me like, hey, they see, successful Kickstarter, successful company. They're like, hey, I want to start my own toy company. And I'm like, let me give you the full story of it, because I think what happened with Kickstarters, like in 2013, 2014, there were a bunch of successful ones. Then in 2015, 16, 17, there were a bunch of people that thought, okay, it's something easy to do, I can do it, but really didn't have the knowledge of toy manufacturing. And those didn't go so well, and a lot of them didn't deliver or delivered late and just had problems. So, for me, it was good that I had the knowledge, but at the same time, I had to learn so much more. And I'm still learning more to this day. And even when I did this, I had only been on social media for maybe 6 to 8 months before that. So I had to kind of get used to social media and do all this viral marketing for the line, and it was stuff that I didn't know about and I wasn't used to. So I had to get used to all this stuff. I had to, figure out, StreamYard and live streams and things like that. And but it's been great. I love learning. I love the idea of doing more than just my design work. So it's been awesome, and I came from the comics industry prior to being a toy designer. So now that I can run my own comics for the line has been awesome too, because now it's like I get to learn that business as well at the same time. So it's a constant learning flow for me.
Now, was that always part of the plan? Like, you knew modeling it after lines of the past lines of our childhood? You were like, there's got to be a comic component to this to sell the story.
Absolutely. You know, as you could see in my room, I'm a huge lifelong GI Joe fan, and that model was the perfect model. And you know, a good friend of mine, Kirk Bazigian, he was the brand manager on GI Joe all through the '80s, and he was kind of the mastermind of a lot of that. And you know, I like to pick his brain, but I also like I look at what he did, and I was like, it was perfect. It was perfect. You had figures, and then it said, okay, well, how would you drive the story? Comics, and then it's going to catch on, and we're going to do a cartoon, and it's going to be great. And then all of that is just going to evolve even more. The toys evolved more, and the comics kept going. The cartoon took off, and I was like, there's nothing wrong with that model. So why not just do that model? So
Yeah.
it's been working so far, because the other thing, what I think a lot of crowdfunding, Kickstarter kind of things suffer from is you launch your crowdfunding, and it succeeds, but then you have like a whole year and a half, maybe even longer, while your customers are waiting for their product. You have to do a good job of keeping them engaged the whole way through, and also helping your brand evolve the whole way through. So that's the other reason why I wanted to do the comics, because I wanted to keep giving people Action Force content while they were waiting, so that I know the wait is long. It's like, even when you do pre-orders for big companies, it's not as long. Kickstarters are longer because it's like you make to order kind of thing. I understand that, and I'm not a patient person, so I feel for the people waiting for the product, and I'm waiting for the product myself.
Sure.
But you want to be able to give people something, and that's the constant challenge, is making sure you have content for them. So that the comics have been great in that sense, and it, you know, the success of the Kickstarter and the pre-orders have, you know, allowed me to have the extra funds to be able to create the comics to get out to people.
Right. Before we get into the specifics of how you've reinvented Action Force for the 21st century, I did want to ask one question that is sort of unique and piquing my brain to the retro blasting, I don't know what you call it, atmosphere that's sort of grown up around the last 2 or 3 years, especially since we've been doing Saturday live streams. Because when you do long live streams, everybody who's watching slowly gets to kind of know you on a different level as a host
Yeah.
of a YouTube channel. And one of the things people have figured out about me, because I've opened my mouth and talked about it, is I spent my adolescence in the UK. I lived in England for a little while, and while Action Force was, like so many vintage toy lines of the 80s, not around in 1990 through 93, it was still something that was, you know, you would see vestiges of it everywhere, like you would Doctor Who or anything else that was also off the air at that time. On this channel, there's these run-on jokes. Like the other day, I'm wearing an RAF jacket in honor of this discussion that we're having, because Action Force was a Palatoy British answer, as you can see right behind me, the original headquarters. Yeah. And these are the Palatoy 5 points of articulation figures. These are not the repurposed later Hasbro figures. These are the original Palatoy designed figures. On a channel on a video the other day, somebody made the comment that they thought I was wearing a Gulag officer's uniform. Now, I bring this up as part of a larger question, so I promise you I'm getting there. My point is that people who are not from England, especially in the United States and our generation, aren't very aware of British things and British entertainment a lot of the time. So, for example, one of the run-on jokes at Retro Blasting is my lifelong affinity for Kylie Minogue. No one in America knows who she is. All right.
I know who she is.
I know you know who she is. That's the question I'm getting to, because you, like myself, are an American kid from the 80s, right? How did you find out about Action Force as a brand that was eventually tied to G.I. Joe? And how did that come to be, and where did your interest in Action Force come from for you to go to this level to get this started, this brand started again?
Yeah, that's a good story, because yeah, it is odd when you think of it, a British line, American person doing this British line. I remember, I think I was maybe 25 and I was at a convention and I saw a red laser. Now, for those of you who don't know, red laser was basically just a recolored Cobra Commander that was all red, black eyes, or black band, white eyes, but he was very cool looking. He didn't have a Cobra symbol on. He was just an all red Cobra Commander. I remember seeing it. And I said to the guy, I said, wow, that's a weird bootleg. And he said, it's not bootleg, it's Action Force. What's Action Force? Well, it's Cobra Commander. And then he proceeded to tell me about what Action Force was. Like, it's G.I. Joe in the UK, but it's not the same characters. It's, some of the same figures. And then he showed me some more. And then I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I went onto yojo.com and went to a section I never went to, which is the international section. And then I started looking through all the Action Force figures there. But they only showed the G.I. Joe body. So I only thought that it was just the kind of this G.I. Joe repaint. And then I started to learn a little bit more about it and come to find out there was this whole history of Action Force way before G.I. Joe even happened. And it was the 5-point articulated figures, which I grew up on Star Wars. So I love those figures. So to me, I wish that I knew about those figures earlier on, because there's so many great designs in those figures, and the headquarters playset for being cardboard is amazing. And it's like great, kind of sci-fi militaristic vehicles. So to me, that was like finding out this whole new thing that was so similar to G.I. Joe, but it was something different. And that's what I loved about it, because I could still love G.I. Joe, but at the same time, I had something else as well. And then, in my 20s, there wasn't, my early 20s, there wasn't eBay. By the time I found out about Red Laser and Action Force, eBay was just kind of getting big. So I wasn't really able to find anything yet, because the majority of Action Force was owned, like, it was in the UK. So all UK residents had it. So it was really, really hard to get. So it wasn't until years and years passed on that I was able to get more. And once I completed kind of my vintage G.I. Joe collection, I wanted to start diving into international. And some of those fun, they're really bad quality. So I knew I didn't want to get into the fun school figures. But then seeing all the Action Force figures, I said they were so well done. They were on par with regular Hasbro Joe figures. That's why I went back and started getting all that stuff. And now I've been going back over the last 2 years, going and collecting the 5-point articulated figures to have that whole history of Action Force.
Yeah. Melinda has just told me off camera that she's going to be running the super chat. So apparently we have a super chat that Melinda wants to let me know about.
Awesome.
So Sal says, for those of you that don't know, Sal runs the excellent modern toy channel, 2 Cents Toys. For those of you that don't know 2 Cents Toys and you like modern toys, highly recommend you go check it out. I subscribe because Sal's channel is to the point. I like the fact that he reviews modern figures with no nonsense. He doesn't waste your time, and he tells you everything you need to know as a modern collector. That was my impromptu boilerplate promotion of 2 Cents Toys, which he did not pay me for. Although technically this is a super chat, so that does look suspect. But let's ride right past that. So he says, nothing important to say. Just wanted to contribute, though I am going to have to get me a couple of them Swarm figures. Love the translucents. Chances of a version 2 with red or a diver code named Kraken. Do you know what that means, Bobby? I'm going to let you know that.
I do. Kraken was a figure during the Palatoy Action Force line, but he was like a sea monster. He was like a creature from the Black Lagoon. He had, green head, green arms, green legs, but he had like this kind of this one piece red bikini on. And he came with a net, and I think he came with a harpoon, like a harpoon gun or a spear gun. Just an odd character. But it's kind of one of those things where you grew to really like those characters in Action Force. They had some obscure bad guys. And I, as much as I want my Action Force to be its own thing and new characters and evolved story and something different, I still want to pay homage to what came before. So like Condor is a British SAS operative. So that's my tie to the original Action Force, and he's the leader of the new team now. But I'm always thinking of ways to tie in to that rich history of Action Force and doing something like that. So I roll around a few ideas every now and then. Kraken's one of those tough ones though, because he's so obscure. But I know our mutual friend Tony from Analog Toys. We bounce ideas off each other, and he gave me one cool idea for an old 12-inch Action Man figure that needs to get into the line. But maybe we'll talk some more and figure out how to get something that pays homage to Kraken.
Now, Kevin Kevin is yelling Cammy with all caps, which of course is reference to Cammy from Street Fighter, who was played by Kylie Minogue. I'd like everybody to know that in the run-up to this discussion, as Bobby and I were messaging back and forth, I did shamelessly suggest that at some point in a future wave of Action Force, there should be an Australian female sniper named Kylie. I put that out there. It may never happen, but I just wanted to make the universe know that that I did suggest it. All right, so moving on. You've got the comic, you've got the characters, you're in development right now on the designs. You've even got Sergeant Slaughter officially in the Action Force lineup. What is the kind of lead time that it takes from design to production to, I mean, I know you're in the middle of the Kickstarter right now, but from your experience, like when you're designing it to then to developing it to then you have the final figure. And I know that COVID has thrown everything off, the lockdown has thrown everything off, but in a typical average production timeline, what are we talking? I don't mean to hold you to that. I'm trying to get a sense of how the industry works. So for everybody listening, I'm not talking about specifically when Bobby's figures are going to come out. I'm interested in the process in general. So what's the normal average amount of time from conception to packaged figures?
It's about 10 to 12 months. I think back, before I got to Hasbro, I think maybe it was more like the 12, 14 months range. But I think now with technology and people are sculpting faster, rapid prototyping, all that is saving so much time, and the digital age makes things so much quicker now. Back only 6-7 years ago, they were still sculpting in wax, and then you take you would have to mold and cast it, make your resin copies, and hand paint it. Well, to cut down on the sculpting in wax, now you sculpt digitally, and it's half the time, at least. So, and then packaging mock-ups, that sort of thing. So that all that front end stuff, that concept stuff is a lot quicker. And then now getting over to manufacturing in China, I think they're more streamlined now, and they're able to do things a lot easier with tooling and making these steel molds. So, when I was at Hasbro, it would be pretty much from pitch to green tags, which was our final sample we got before, the product went on the boat and shipped over. That was, like I said, 10 to 12 months. But then each company can kind of do things a little different. When I went to Jazzwares in 2019, man, they worked fast. They worked real fast. And they would do things that I had never seen before. And they would produce figures in 6 months. And I couldn't believe it. I was there for like 2.5 months. I was at Jazzwares. And I remember I worked on a figure right when I got there, and right before I left, I saw test shots, and that blew my mind. I said, that's like unheard of to see that, to get sculpts done so fast. And they just worked really closely with their factory to the point where they were able to just get things done quicker. I don't know how it works with some of the other bigger factories. Like, I don't know if Hasbro factories are being shared with other things and if Jazzwares maybe had their own. I don't know any of that. All I know is they did things really fast. It was really cool to see that, but at the same time, I was like, whoa, what's going on here? This is, I'm not used to this. It was something very new.
Right. We have a super chat. Yes. Oh, Wicked Person says, old enough to remember wanting Bullet Man from the 12-inch Joe line. Soldiers never piqued my imagination. Incredibly pricey now. Now, I do remember Tony talking about Bullet Man, and I believe there was also, wasn't there a guy in Action Man called, like, was it Atomic Man or Oh gosh, there was another dude who was kind of like a cyborg strongman guy at one
Gotcha.
point in the line.
My Action Man history isn't very good.
Yeah, mine either. That's why I constantly watch Analog Toys to refresh my memory. I have one Action Man. Well, no, that's not true now because of Tony and George. I have like 3 Action Man figures. I have like the tank commander, I have a British Army officer, and I have the German sentry. So I have those 3. All right. So you're talking about 12 months ideally. How has the COVID thing affected things? Do you know? Like, will the new action force, is that having to take this into account, or have things stabilized and found a new normal at this point?
Yes and no. It's one of those things where it was such a bummer when COVID hit, because I'd said to a good friend of mine who is partnered with the factory over there. We've known each other from when he was at Hasbro. I told him, I said, when I start this line, I want to do it right so that it's not late. I want to be the first Kickstarter that delivers on time, or relatively on time, because I planned everything and I got everything ready to the point where, all right, we should be okay. We shouldn't hit any huge delays because I'm planning. But it was like, I gave them my hard copies and my Paint Masters and my digital files, and then COVID hit. Of course, it hit there first. So they slowed down right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, crap, what's going to happen now? And it's something I've definitely felt the sting of, because, the process has gone so slow during this time, because you got to think when it hit them to the point where they then kind of started ramping back up in July, it's almost 8 months where you lost. So now it's like we're then 8 months behind. So now it was like I'm always talking to them, always seeing what are we doing? Are we close? Like, what are you guys doing to catch up? And it was one of those things where even from the start, we didn't know if there was going to be a delay until about now, because we're at the point in the process where we felt like, okay, all the stuff we were trying to use to make up time, did it work? Is it working? Is it possible? Is COVID still affecting it? And that's the problem, is COVID is still affecting things over there. Like my guy, who's, basically partnered with the factory, but he is in one section of Hong Kong, but he can't get over to the mainland where the factory is. So he's basically been in quarantine this whole time. So he's doing everything remotely. It's causing a huge delay because he can't get over to the factory. He's got to wait for samples to come to him. And it's just a constant delay. And it wasn't something that I knew yet, but I recently had a conversation with them this week, and, we're kind of assessing how bad the delay is going to be. So it's something I haven't let everyone in the Kickstarter and the pre-orders know yet, because I literally just found out. But it looks like we're going to hit a little bit of a delay because the COVID effects are now, you're starting to see the overall effects on how it affected the big picture now. So unfortunately, we're going to hit something, but we're trying to minimize what that delay is. So I'm doing everything I can on my end to make sure that it's not a huge thing, because listen, I've had such loyal fans and loyal customers, but at the same time, they paid for this product and they should have this product. And I know how hard it is to wait once you've paid for something. Sure. And I want to make sure that this gets in your hands as quickly as possible. So I'm looking into options where, if I can pay out of pocket to airship and, get it here quicker than the 5 weeks it's going to take on the boat. So all that's being assessed. Updates are going to go out very soon once I have all the information ready. But, unfortunately, we're going to hit something. But it seems like everyone's kind of getting it.
Oh, yeah. No, that's why I asked it in the general sense, because it is affecting everybody. So I just wanted to find out, from somebody who it is affecting directly, how it generally can delay things. To everyone listening out there, this is not specific to Valaverse. This is something that's been affecting everybody, all the way up to the biggest companies in the toy industry this past 18 months. Melinda has some super chats, apparently.
All right.
Kevin Johnson says, are we going to see any Action Force cardboard play sets like the Missile Command Center or the Palatoy headquarters, which is behind my shoulder, or even diorama backgrounds? Hashtag Cammy, aka Kylie, Australian Sniper.
Listen, I love cardboard playsets. There's something about a cardboard playset that I don't know what it is. It just has this feeling. There's something cool about it. The Palatoy one's amazing, and it's very similar to the Death Star that you have, which I remember seeing the Death Star in a magazine, and I remember thinking, like, of course the Death Star should have been round, and of course that, the Kenner one was just a big platform, a couple platforms.
Yep.
But it wasn't round. I was like, they made a round one. It was so cool. And then learning about the Missile Command headquarters, and then I got the honor and opportunity to do the reissue San Diego Comic-Con Missile Command headquarters. Still to this day, probably my favorite item I ever worked on.
Yeah.
So to me, there's something very cool about a cardboard playset. Plus, nowadays we know, after seeing Snake Mountain from Super 7, how hard and expensive it is to do playsets. But playsets are one of those things, we all love them. And I think there is a way to do playsets for this scale with those means, with, by doing cardboard or like chipboard, game board, a heavy duty kind of board. I don't think anyone's done it at this scale. So it'll be interesting to sort of explore that. It's definitely on my radar, and it's something I want to do. So we'll just get the line going, make the line super successful. And then for sure, I definitely want to get, something like that out.
Awesome. I guess we have another super chat as well from Laser Pants. He says, hey, Bobby, I have a question I don't think you've ever answered. Will the Action Force line ever have vehicles, and will one of them be a $450 Thunder Tank? For those of you who need context on that, Super 7 just announced a $450 6-inch scale Thunder Tank. And from the comments I've seen from fans in the background, the jaws have hit the floor, not always in the most positive way on that announcement. But please, Bobby, I'll let you answer that question.
So, everyone, I want to introduce Laser Pants, aka Ryan, who is one of my co-hosts on the Infinity Equation on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Michael will be a guest this week. Definitely check out that show. It's an awesome show, and Ryan is one of the great hosts on there. So thank you, Ryan, for your awesome question, because I've never gotten this question before. I wish you could sense the sarcasm. Vehicles. He likes to rib me a little bit, but yeah, I'll talk about vehicles a little bit because it's fitting that the Thunder Tank was announced this week, and vehicles is one of those things where at this scale, you have to have the perfect recipe for it. Black Series did an amazing thing by venturing into this scale and making a TIE fighter. Like, that was amazing that they did that. It's a work of art. It's fantastic. Unfortunately, I don't think it performed the way they wanted to. And I think that came down to collectors only having a finite amount of space. And something like that, it's the size of a
also the wrong TIE fighter. If they'd picked a classic TIE fighter, it would have sold like gangbusters. I said it. Yeah, I said it.
That too. But I think they saw it and they said, okay, well, let's dial it back. Let's focus on better, smaller vehicles, more iconic vehicles, and things like Tauntaun, the Land Speeder. But now, most recently, they did the Snow Speeder, which is my all-time favorite Star Wars vehicle.
Same.
I immediately got it. It's one of the best items I've ever gotten, and it's granted, it's like I think I paid $120 for it, which is a sting because you're like, ooh, $120, but came with a figure and it's super detailed. I didn't even mind because it's great.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people will look at it and say, well, why, that's so expensive compared to, a $20 figure, $120 vehicle. It's some people it just doesn't make sense. And I get it. And I try to kind of shed some light on that. But, vehicles are going to be one of those things where I definitely want to do them. I definitely have plans to do them. I have an idea of how to do it the right way, but you have to keep the cost down. But at the same time, it's still going to be costly. And I think it's a matter of getting the consumer base ready for a vehicle, and so that they're prepared. Like, say, I don't know what the costing will be. I'm just speculating right now. Say my vehicle comes out and it's $175. I want to make sure that people are aware as it goes on and be ready for that kind of price point. Because I think something like the Thunder Tank, it came out and it shocked people because nothing else had came out before that got them ready for it.
Right.
And you have something like Snake Mountain, which was, what was Snake Mountain, 600?
100, yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's different. That's a giant playset. It's an iconic playset.
Yeah.
You know, I have a lot of mixed feelings on the Thunder Tank. You know, I've listened to a lot of the interviews with Brian from Super 7 and some interviews by, you know, a gentleman in the chat. He had a great video that rebut that, which was very entertaining. So thank you for that. I am skeptical about the cost on it and why it needs to be that way. I don't know Super 7's costs. I don't know what their production run is going to be. I crunched my own numbers, figuring out what it would be if I had to guesstimate. And, you know, my numbers were much different from theirs.
Right.
Like I said, you know, it's a licensed line. I don't know what their royalties are. You know, and it's also, yes, the Thunder Tank is iconic, but, you know, with the Masters of the Universe line and the fact that Thundercats didn't perform with Mattel, so they didn't continue with it. So that should have told you something like, okay, well, He-Man is an iconic brand. Thundercats, kind of iconic, but I don't think it has the fandom that a Masters of the Universe has. So I don't think you can get that deep into it. And even Brian alluded to it in his one interview with another reviewer that he joked about there not being a lot of Thundercats fans. So I agree with that. I don't really think there is. And it shocks me that they would want to go this route and test these waters with something like the Thunder Tank. I would have thought, like, you know, maybe do something different. I mean, I know there's not a lot of great iconic He-Man vehicles. You know, I could be wrong about that just by thinking, but they didn't have like a Thunder Tank equivalent. Like, I think the Thunder Tank was in every episode.
Yeah. And
it basically, it was, you know, it was what the Sky Striker was to G.I. Joe. Yeah. But at the same time, like I said, the fandom really isn't there. I'm interested to see, once they put the pre-orders up, if people will actually come forward with that price point.
Yeah.
$600 Snake Mountain, that's one thing.
Right.
I think they also saw what Star Wars did with the Razor Crest. And I think that tainted things a little bit, because that's different. That's Star Wars. And like I said, Brian even said that in the thing. Well, that's Star Wars. But you can't help but not kind of compare and not say, well, they were able to do for $350, you know, but theirs comes out, it's, what is it, $450 plus shipping? That's a lot of money. Like, that's a lot of money to, you know, when your figures are already $40, $50, you know, you have to think about your customer base and what you're putting them through. Like, there's a lot of things for us to buy. There's Black Series, there's Legends, there's Classified, Action Force, Mythic Legions. There's tons and tons and tons of stuff for us to buy. It's like, if someone puts $450 toward that, that means that's $450 they can't spend on other stuff. We don't just have stimulus checks coming left and right that we could just buy Thunder Tanks. Sure. So it's going to be something I keep an eye on, because it'll be a teaching tool for me. Like, okay, well, what did they do right? What did they do wrong? If it does succeed, okay, people will pay that sort of thing. You know, there's a lot. I have a lot of different conflicting feelings on it, but it's going to be something I'm going to be watching closely.
Yeah. We have another super chat here from Lio Convoy Reviews. He says, and I know his voice very well, so this is with a lot of sarcasm. He says, hey, you're not allowed to be transparent and get things to your backers as soon as possible. You're supposed to keep taking money while letting people know of the delays last minute, which, of course, is another zing at Super 7 and a number of other companies. Lio Convoy and I go back a few years. He's a good friend of the channel. He runs his own channel. He's a big Thundercats fan, and he is living proof that friendships should not ever be based on pop culture opinions. Because as you know, Bobby, I do not like the Thundercats. He loves the Thundercats. He's objective about the size of the Thundercats fan base in regards to the Thunder Tank. And he and I are friends because we make each other laugh and we have similar convictions. So, yeah.
Well, Lio Convoy is the gentleman who I was just referencing, whose amazing video I watched recently. So thank you for that. I loved your rebuttal. I loved your comments and your insight to the Thunder Tank. So it's great that you are tuning into the channel.
Yeah, he's good people. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But no, I mean, to what he's saying, it's like, listen, you know, when I send out the message about the delays, it's kind of one of those things, and people know this whole ride, this whole Action Force production, I've kept everyone in the loop the whole way through. I wanted to do it different than anyone else has ever done a crowdfunding or a startup company before. I wanted you to feel like you were riding on the train with me the whole way. Mm-hmm. So no information was ever kept from you. So when I tell people about the delay, I want them to know that, listen, I'm finding out the information right now because it was something that we couldn't formulate until this point. Yeah. So, you know, I know there's a lot of sting out there with, you know, with pre-orders and things like that. And listen, I feel for people. I look at the sales go up daily and I'm like, this is great that the sales are going up and the line's doing well, but I feel for the consumer because I'm like, I know they're waiting and they're being so patient and they're doing so well and everyone's so loyal. And I just want to get the best possible product to them. So, sure. You know, I'm working as hard as possible to push the factory to make sure that we get this stuff done because people have got to have the product in their hand.
Yeah. Well, then this next super chat might comfort you. Chris Johnson says, the Legions are loyal and patient, Bobby. We are with you if there is a delay or not. So you've got confidence on your side right now.
Everyone, Chris Johnson, this is the world's biggest modern day Valaverse Action Force fan.
Oh, is it?
He awesome. He is.
We have another super chat from Yojo Banjo. He says, thank you, Michael and Bobby, for all the fantastic info. For Bobby, do you have any family personal history with the military? And if so, how much did that influence your love for military toys?
I don't have any family in the military. I mean, my grandfather was in the Navy, but it wasn't something I really knew as a kid. I saw a picture on the wall of him in his Navy uniform, but it wasn't something that, you know, I like dove into as a kid. To me, I got into military stuff because of G.I. Joe. That was my kind of foray into it. But military's weird for kids. I think we almost have like this instinct to just get into it without really knowing about it. Like I see my son, and when my son was like 3, like I never told him anything about shooting guns or anything like that. But like he just almost like figured out like what shooters were, Nerf guns and things like that. So it was like I kind of was trying to not have him learn about, you know, firearms and things like that until he was much older. But it just turns out to just instinctively or just content or just spatial awareness, you figure it out as a kid.
Yeah, there's a reason that kids learn that rubber bands can be pulled back and launched off a thumb, and that's how the bow and arrow got invented. You know, back in the days of people living in caves. So yeah, it's kind of a thing that kids just explore and they figure out projectiles very quickly.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And you know, so for me growing up, not having family in the military, but I have a lot of friends in the military. My best friend is deployed overseas right now. He's in the Navy. My hockey team is made up of like half military guys. So it's like, I've always been around military people. I think I just love talking to them. I think that they are a different type of person, you know, different breed. And that's something I kind of gravitate to. I feel like we're very like-minded. So I feel like I'm someone that probably should have been in the military because there's so many influences of it for me. And I'm so into it and other things that are associated with it that I probably should have been. Because you know, I gravitate towards the people that are in, but you know, I try to do what I can. I employ a lot of military guys with Action Force. Gentleman that just did the weapon sculpts for Series 2. He's in the Navy. A gentleman that does he's an ex, I believe, he's an ex Special Forces or ex Rangers. He is my military consultant. He comes in and he reviews all the comic scripts to make sure all the lingo is correct and how they set up missions and things like that. So he'll say, oh, well, they wouldn't really say that in this situation, or when these guys are getting out of out of this convoy, they would line up this way and this and that. So it's great to have that realistic aspect to it, and I can bring that in. And I'm working on bringing more military people in. That some announcements are coming towards that. So it's a military line with real military individuals.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've seen the updates on your Facebook page regarding, the weapons themselves with the removable magazines and things
Mhm.
like that, the level of detail and their authentic, weaponry. They don't look like Nerf guns, anything like that. It's very exciting to see that finally coming back in what is now a modern desired scale, the 6-inch scale, which has become the collector's de facto want or desire. We have another super chat here from Parik Boylan. He says, "Hey, Michael and Bobby, will Action Force be going into a fantasy theme or more real world adventure? And thanks for making weapons packs."
You're very welcome. Thank you for digging them. I'm going to keep it very real world for now. The story does take place 8 years from now, so there's going to be some of that future tech coming into play, like not crazy future tech. Like they won't be time traveling anytime soon. They won't be jumping the shark at all, but I know that the story definitely has to evolve. You don't like even G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe had to evolve over the years, into Eco-Force and when they went into space, that's when the line died. So someone, I forgot who it was, told me, they said, the second you go into space, the line dies. Don't go into space. So,
Yeah.
I'll keep it real world for now, but I'm also thinking of, well, Valaverse is a company, we have Action Force, but
Mhm.
I want to develop more lines. I want to bring in more lines. So I'm thinking of what's the next genre I want to tackle. And that,
Yeah.
you got to look at the lay of the land. You got to see like what's out there. Like even with Action Force, I knew I didn't want to go post-apocalyptic because there's been so much of that. So I went just a little bit in the future. So what do you go sci-fi? But a lot of sci-fi has been done. Do you go, who knows? It's like, I love pirates. I love pirate lore. I don't know how well that would do in an action figure line. So we'll see. But it's stuff I'm always thinking about.
Yeah. Good night, George Aitken. I'm glad you were here for a little bit of this discussion. George Aitken is a
Oh,
huge
awesome.
Action Force fan, and I don't know if he heard me because that was a few minutes ago. But good night, George. We have a world made of cardboard. Is asking, when I saw Steel Brigade, I was interested. I had the original figure. How did you manage to get the names you did?
Trademarks. So just a quick lesson with the way trademarks work. So a trademark is the rights to a name of something. So the name Steel Brigade and the name Action Force had expired. Hasbro hadn't used them in time to keep them going. You have a certain amount of time to use a name to keep it active. So, at Hasbro, they're constantly putting out an item just to protect the trademark of something. Once you do it, it's good for another 3 years, and you have to keep putting stuff out to keep that trademark live. Well, lucky for me, when I was looking into Action Force, like that I knew had been abandoned for years, but Steel Brigade is my all-time favorite G.I. Joe figure. And I have I think I'm almost at 150 of them right now on my wall. I've been told I have the largest Steel Brigade collection in the world, which is kind of crazy. So it's really important to me. And, when I was up, names of old Joes that, see what's available. And I looked up Steel Brigade, and it turned out they had never actually filed for the trademark of Steel Brigade back in the 80s. I think they were just churning out so many figures that they just did it. And, obviously, like, as you're using it, it kind of just creates the trademark for you. So it's like, ingrained in use. But then they hadn't done anything with it. And it had been, I think, 4 or 5 years the last time they did something with it. So I was able to swoop in and get it and bring it into Action Force. So that's how I was able to get the name. So it's cool to do my own line and have the name of my all-time favorite Joe in the line and be able to create a new version of it.
That's awesome. That's great. Bjorn says, my cow just got out and there are 3 random pigs in my yard. Be right back. Bjorn, I hope everything goes well with that. Wicked Person says, how much do we think pre-owned Thunder tanks will sell for in 20 years' time? Well, that assumes, Wicked, that the tank actually gets made. We're still in a holding pattern with that because they're still looking for the right number of pre-orders, from what I understand, and they haven't. Have they officially launched the pre-orders yet? I can't even remember.
I believe it opened today. I think it
opened
went live
today. Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's going to be like the Razor Crest where they needed 6,000 and got 28,000. I think it's going to be something else. And of course, the punchline to that Razor Crest joke was that then it blew up. So, I know I'm mean. All right. Scuba Pete says, question, was it tough to cultivate a relationship with the factory to truly create what you had in mind?
No, the factory part was the first puzzle piece to get put down. I wouldn't have done this unless I had a good factory lined up, because, as I said before, there were a lot of Kickstarters that ran into factory issues because it was people that didn't have toy experience and were just hiring factories word of mouth, and those factories were screwing them over and not delivering. So I said, if I do this, the first thing I need to line up is a factory. And it just so happened that a good friend of mine, he partnered with a factory, and that factory is reliable. They put out many, many different lines that you guys buy today. So it's a reliable, good quality factory. And I said, when I first reviewed it with him, I said, is this a project you guys want to take on? I said, absolutely. So it's the factory part has been the easy part. I mean, not with, the slowness and the delays and that sort of thing, but just getting it and feeling confident in the factory was a huge weight off of me. And now I knew from then it was just, wait on me to get it done.
Sure. Yeah. Blake Quammen says, it's sad because it's a sweet Thunder tank, hoping toy companies don't see fan reaction and never want to do any more vehicles. Well, my response to that, Blake, would be that it's also important to know what your fan base size is and what their buying precedent has been for merchandise. And like Bobby pointed out earlier, when Mattel tried to do Thundercats a few years ago on pegs in stores, or maybe it was their Matty Collector line, Bondi had them in stores before that. Mm-hmm. Then Mattel had them. Bondi gave up that license. Then Mattel gave up that license. So Thundercats could arguably be not even a hot potato. It's like a lukewarm potato, merchandising wise, that people are passing around. It's going to take a new show or something that really takes off for this brand to kind of do the hard reset and get in people's faces in a good way. Let's see. We have Timothy Ward says 6-inch MASH inspired. He's a big MASH fan. So that is a good question. I mean, I know you're looking at real world military. Do you have like medics and stuff like that you're working into the story as well?
I do. There, you have to have kind of your token medic characters like G.I. Joe, Doc, and Lifeline. So and they were popular characters. So for for some reason the medic is always a popular character.
Yeah.
So the medic is definitely gonna come out, maybe series 4 or 5, but definitely down the road.
Yeah, Melinda just got excited because she's a nurse, and so she was like, "Yes, nurses are going to get some attention in the medic corps of Action Force."
Well, maybe since series 3 is an all-female wave, maybe I'll put the medic in the female wave as a female medic.
Ah, very nice. Yeah. Maybe you could name a Kylie. All right. Moving forward, Jesus says, I'm never going to stop. You never have to do it, and I'll always love you, but I'm never going to stop. All right. Jesus says, hello, Michael and Bobby. Your thoughts on the 6-inch G.I. Joe Classifieds line? I don't know how far we want to go into that at this point. I'll let Bobby, plead the fifth on this one. What I'll say is I've never seen them on pegs, and I've been in a lot of stores over the last year, and I've never once seen one out in the wild. And I think I'm safe on this platform, as I've said many times, that Hasbro's got some problems, and their distribution with that line is a real problem, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right.
Not my cup of tea. I've spoke about the line extensively, but listen, not every line's for everybody. This particular one's not for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, we don't have any super chats at the moment, so I wanted to move into, unless there's something else you wanted to say about Action Force, Bobby.
I'm good. Let's we can keep going.
All right. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit, as both of us being Gen X toy collectors from back in the day, the heyday of action figures. And we've maintained our collection habit throughout our adulthood, you know, into our 20s and 30s. It seems to me, and I could have this perception completely wrong, but you know, in the 80s, at the very beginning of the 80s, we had Mego's Eagle Force, which was a military toy line. We then had G.I. Joe, Real American Hero.
There was a
Quickly,
mash line. There was a 3 3/4 mash line in there.
that's right. The MASH line was in there. Thank you for the reminder. And we also had Lennard's The Core, which surprisingly, and to its credit with a big salute, is still going. Like Lennard's The Core is still out there. I love the fact that they haven't, you know, thrown in the towel in all these years. I think it's awesome. They have some of the coolest vehicles that I've had the pleasure of having in the studio on occasion. That big B-25 Mitchell inspired, you know, cargo or bomber plane that they did. They've got some cool looking figures. But that being the case, when G.I. Joe was kind of slowly becoming a Toys R Us exclusive into the late 90s and then drifted there for a while, did the 25th anniversary thing wide, and then it went back to being G.I. Joe exclusive or Toys R Us exclusive right before the end.
Yep.
In that span through the aughts, I couldn't even keep count of them all. There was Motorworks, there was 21st Century Toys, there was Forces of Valor, there was Elite Force, there was BBI. Another one. Say what?
BBI, Blue Box.
Yes, BBI. Yep. Yes, all of these companies making some pretty amazing toys, military grade, military style toys, of which I own a good number of the 1/18 scale 21st Century Toys World War II fighter planes.
Yeah,
I made the mistake the other day of going onto eBay to see if I could find Elite Forces F-16 Fighting Falcon in the 1/18 scale, and was sticker shocked to see that it was going for $1,000 when you could find it.
Yeah.
So clearly there is a rabid desire for these types of toys. And yet it seems like the only military toy lines, aside from Lennard's The Core, which is just, it's like the unsinkable ship that's just out there that nobody seems to be able to kill it, which is awesome. But aside from The Core, which very few people proportionally know about, G.I. Joe and Action Force are the two military toy brands, the names that are held up, meaning they're held up, you know, on a pedestal. Everything else that's attempted it with very high quality stuff has not made it, has not run the gauntlet successfully. Why do you think that is a thing with military toy lines since, we'll say, 95 to now? Like, what was their mistake? What was their flaw? What happened?
Well, I think I was trying to think about this over the last couple of days, and there are some things that stick out to me. Like when I go back and I think about going to Toys R Us and buying the 21st Century Toy stuff, and that was when Dragon came out and BBI, like that was a really cool time for real world military stuff. And I was buying it up like crazy because I think that was just before 25th anniversary and kind of survived into 25th anniversary. The stuff was so good. And I remember like it just kind of sitting on the shelves, and now it's so hard to get on the secondary market. I'm glad I have a bunch of it. And because I have some of the World War II planes, which is awesome. And, you know, their World War II line was unbelievable. The tanks, the detail they put into the tank, like anything I've ever seen before. And I think, well, why didn't that survive? And I think probably what happened was I'd have to look, but were there any big real world shootings that happened during that time?
I'm sure there were.
That could have had an effect with retail. Retail didn't want to take something like that because all those lines were real. And they didn't have characters. The reason why I think G.I. Joe and Action Force and even The Core have survived, they have characters. It's not like just generic military guys. I think at the end of the day, people want real world looking gear, but they want a cool, unique character. They want a character they can get behind. And that was a reason why I didn't want to just do just like a customizable line. I wanted it to be stories and characters and stuff that people can sink their teeth into. So I think that a lot of that probably had to do with it, if I had to guess. But it could be a number of things. I also have been thinking back to the way it was, when we were kids. Shoot, man, remember the aisle in Toys R Us? You had sort of the several action figure aisles, but then there was this aisle to the side of it that was all role play stuff. But remember, they had the wooden rack with all the die cast guns with the blaze orange tips that you cocked and like were loud. I was like, that was amazing back then. Like you could just buy like toy rifles on wooden gun racks, like in the aisle. And to look at where we are now, where it's like the closest thing you get is all Nerf stuff.
Right.
Very bright colored tech looking things. And I'm sure a lot of it had to do with real world factors, what was happening in society. And then also the character aspect, changed for military stuff. It would be interesting to like really dive into it and just like analyze year after year and things that happen and be able to like put like a formula together and like, maybe in my free time one day I'll do a book report for you.
Well, it's funny you bring up the role play weapons of the 80s when we were kids. I was just talking to Matt Swafford. He runs Reclaimers Vintage Toys on Instagram. You might know him better as the guest expert in my Inhumanoids feature.
Okay.
Yeah, he showed me a picture the other day of this absolutely perfect. I don't remember if it was Larami or because it wasn't a water gun, but it was like a Larami or LJN branded Uzi 9 from the 80s. It was a toy Uzi 9, but it was 1-to-1 scale, all black, no orange tip, with all of the details in the grips and the paneling and everything on the frame. And he said, I found this in a collection that I was going through, he said, and it was like $20 to get it. He said, and it was like, yeah, sure, I'll take it. He said, and the moment he posted it on the Instagram, he said that somebody just wanted it and they paid like $250 for it because those types of toys are extinct. I mean, they're gone. And they were played with outside, you literally rolled around in the dirt with them, slid down, rocky inclines, dove into creeks with them. Very few of those toys have survived intact. For God forbid, mint. Very few of them are cosmetically mint. You're lucky if you can find one that doesn't have anything snapped off of them. Mud and scuffs is a win at that point. We have a super chat. Salvador says, just got Swarm, Karak, Bone Collector, Swarm pack, and both weapons packs. Probably going to have to go back for more Swarm figs later on.
Thank you so much, Sal. I very much appreciate you supporting the line. Thank you.
And I saw a comment up here earlier from Lio Convoy. I'll have to summarize, but he wanted to say that he really was pleasantly surprised and appreciated the fact that you had watched videos on his channel. So he wanted to thank you for that.
Of course, man. That actually, one of the guys on my podcast, we have like a chat, a daily chat going, and they had put the link up there. And because I was watching the one with Brian from Super 7, I wanted to see someone else's point of view from it, and they said it was a good watch, so I immediately watched it kind of back to back to get someone else's take on it.
Right. Oh, we have another super chat from someone named Melinda. I believe I know her. She says, I would love to see more World War II nurse figures. Do you think there's a place for older military figures in the line?
That's interesting. So I love World War II stuff. I have a lot of like vintage World War II era firearms and gear that, I have. And I just love that era for military. It was, it was perfect. Just the look of the uniforms, the look of the firearms, just, the tanks, even the aircraft at the time, like everything was just, it just had that cool industrial feel to it. And there was something about it. So I love the idea of doing World War II line. I know Marauders has an amazing World War II line. I have a ton of their figures from the World War II line. I got to do the Legends World War II Captain America on the motorcycle. So nice. I was able to do, it wasn't an Indian motorcycle because we had to use the Harley from the existing line, but I was able to do new handlebars and a new windshield from the Indian and then put the Thompson sheath on, the Thompson scabbard on the side by the fender and, new saddlebags. So to me, that was great that I was able to do that because I love that era of Captain America.
Yeah.
So I want to do something like that. I'm just trying to figure out what's the best course of action to do it, because I want, as action forces, I want there to be characters and that sort of thing. I don't know if it's something where maybe I can come up with a story where there was an older action force team during
Right.
World War II, and that, so I think that's probably the best way to handle it. I definitely want to do it. So time will tell, but good question, because it's definitely on my radar.
Yeah, that's oh, sorry, we have another super chat. Melinda's just oh, it's not a super chat. Oh, it's a good quote. Melvin Bagby says, "Where can I buy this stuff?" I will post a link. I should have posted a link in the description. Melinda's trying to look it up to put it in the description right now. But Bobby, in the meantime, anecdotally tell him where you can go.
If you go to valaverse.com, VALAVERSE.com, that brings you to the company website. Up in the top right corner, you'll see a red box that says pre-order, or if you scroll down the page, you'll see another red box that says pre-order. There's a lot of links throughout the whole site that will bring you to the pre-order site. When you click on those links, it brings you to a secondary site called CrowdOx. CrowdOx is where you will actually do your pre-order. And if you need help going through the pre-order process, I have a video on the Valaverse YouTube channel that gives you a step-by-step on how to go through the ordering process on CrowdOx. But also, if you got any trouble, just message me. I'll get right back to you.
We also have a super chat here from Ironhead. He says, some of those companies like 21st Century primarily focused on 1/6 figures since then. Love Retroblasting. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Ironhead. Really appreciate that. Bobby, you were talking just a second ago about the World War II motorcycle from Marvel Legends with Captain America. One of the this is just a dumb little side note, but I was very laser focused when collecting Marvel Legends because there's like a bazillion of them, and I wanted to only get ones from things that really interested me. So I decided to pick out like my favorites from the MCU movies and then a few choice superheroes. Well, I was very excited when they announced Peggy Carter, because I thought this is going to be great that, they'll finally bring out Peggy Carter. And as much as I love Haley Atwell in the World War II dress uniform, I was hoping that they were going to bring her out in the leather jacket with the pants from the climax of the movie.
Yep.
Because that set came with a Tommy gun, which I was going to give to her because she has the Tommy gun in the end of the film. And I was when I got the figures anyway, I was like, well, I know she's standing there in a dress uniform, but I'm still going to give her the Tommy gun. It looks weird. Like it looks like that evil maid at the end of From Russia with Love or something like that. I'm waiting for a spike to come out of her shoe so that she can kick people. But it's something that, like you said, the aesthetic of those uniforms and everything like that lends itself to going back into the dossier, the files of the Action Force legacy, and finding out that there's some report somewhere from a battle back in the day in Bavaria or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to tell you your mythology. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? Let's see. Yojo Banjo says, Bobby, you should bring back the haunted tank because yay, Russ Heath.
All right. We'll get it done.
I always found it funny that the Action Man stuff prior to Action Force was considered fairly well detailed, to the point that they actually used the Scorpion tank as a real tank in an episode of Doctor Who in 1974. I don't know if you've seen that clip before.
I've seen it. Yeah.
That's kind of where, to me, the legacy of these military toys is so interesting, because the ones that are based on real world stuff tend to get used, even if they're used for animatics or something, for like a war film, like moving storyboards. They'll break out old Joes. Did you ever see the did you ever watch the British Top Gear?
I have not.
Okay, well, there's one of the three hosts' name is James May, and James did a British television show. It was a limited series called Toy Stories, and one of those Toy Stories was he took an Airfix Spitfire model kit and he blew it up to 1-to-1 size on the sprues. And then he had a class of kids come into an airplane hangar, and they spent like 72 hours trying to paint it and build this model kit to completion. And it was
That's
a 1-to-1 Airfix model kit. Well, one of the other ones he did was he did an Action Man episode where he finally wanted Action Man to successfully fire up in a rocket and then land safely in a self-deployed parachute. And so they did all this stuff, but he works in the history of the toy that he's talking about. So like for the Airfix one, he worked in the history of the Airfix company and all that kind of stuff. And for the Action Man one, he goes to toy shows, talks to dealers and collectors about Action Man, all that kind of stuff. He talks about the Eagle Eyes thing, and they're really interesting. I'll have to find some links to send to you.
I'm gonna write it down to look for it.
Yeah, James May's Toy Stories, great show. Let's see. Jonathan DeRay says, "Hey guys, big fan of the Action Force line, Bobby. Back to the Kickstarter and can't wait. Swarm Trooper all day, baby."
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for supporting the line. I'm glad you like the Swarm Trooper.
It seems like the Swarm Trooper is like everybody's go-to. Was that something you just put like 500% attention into? Where did that come from?
So the Swarm Troopers, like, to me, it's like the oddity of the line. It's like that weird, like, if I like, let me pick out a Joe and say what that Joe is. Like, I don't know, like, remember Blowtorch? He was bright yellow and bright orange. Like, yeah, he was, you know, a flamethrower, but he was just looked odd in the line, or like Lightfoot, you know, those, or Crystal Ball, those oddities. And I looked at the Swarm like, okay, well, I have a lot of real world military looking characters. Bone Collector's a little different with his mask. I wanted something that sort of helped balance it out with that future tech. Like, yes, I don't like a lot of the sci-fi aspects of the classified line because I think they take it a little too far. But like with my line, yeah, the Swarm Trooper is more in that realm, but he's like the one-off. Like, and you can tell that because it's just them, and there's something about them. Why do they have this new tech? Why do they look like this? So that was kind of the story about the Swarm. I just wanted to bring in something that was a little different. So that's how I came up with that character.
Andrew asks, anyone ask Bobby about vehicles yet? LOL. Yes, Andrew, we did. And he's talking about how it has to be measured out and how you have to have a strategy for vehicles. And he hasn't ruled that out. Fade to Black 73 says, attention to detail on the firearms is impeccable. Is Action Force in a shared universe as G.I. Joe, Real American Hero? I saw the apparent Easter egg in Sergeant Slaughter's bio. My understanding is that it's not. It's its own universe, but I'll let Bobby answer that.
Yeah, it is. It is its own universe. But Sergeant Slaughter was, in the Action Force universe, an ex-military guy who, ran covert teams. So, there's nothing, strange about that. So, it's just his story's a little different in Action Force than it was for Joe, because I wanted to, he's not the same character. He's a much different character. Yeah. So no world sharing at all.
Yeah.
Action Force is its own thing. And thanks for noticing the detail on the weapons. That's something that is very important to me in the line. And like I said, the gentleman who sculpted Series 2, current military guy, so he pays a lot of attention to detail. He'll pick up things that I didn't pick up, like, oh, this has this here. So to me, also it's like I'm a big firearms enthusiast. So, I study firearms. I look at them all the time. So I want to make sure that they're as perfect as possible. So every little detail I try to look at and make sure that it's spot on.
My buddy Tim, who's in the live streams with me occasionally, he and I, we always joke. He jokes at me, I should say, about the fact that I'm more of an old school kind of guy when it comes to that, and he's much more of a bleeding edge modern. He loves modern tech of anything, whether it's computers or video cameras or whatever. And that extends into conversations we've had in the past about firearms, because he's so funny. We went to a store one day. It was like an adventure supply place out here in north of Atlanta. and we go in, and I was there to because I have a World War II M1 Garand rifle, but
Nice one.
obviously I didn't. Yeah, it's a 1943 Winchester, which I'm very proud of.
Whew.
But I didn't want. It has it has the early trigger group. It has the early sights. Like it's been corrected and everything like that, or accurized, whatever you want to call it. Well, I didn't want to take that to the range all the time, so I decided I was going to go get a brand new make M14 because it's based on the M1 platform and everything. So we go there, and I'm looking around, and Tim is like, I don't understand why you're getting a wooden rifle. And I'm like, it's not a wooden rifle. It just has a wooden stock, Tim. He's like, no, what you really need is one of these. And he points into the case, and I look down, and Bobby, I honestly wasn't sure what I was looking at. All I can tell you is that it looked like a clone trooper blaster from like a Star Wars prequel. Like yeah. And I'm going, what is this? Is it a bull pup? Something? What is this thing? And he's like, this is the latest polymer, something, blah, blah, blah. And it's got this, and that. And I'm going, I don't even know what language you're speaking at this point. Just give me my tree branch with, the trigger on it, and I'll be happy. Yes, I guess we have a super chat. Epic Badger asks, animal companions, maybe a badger?
Maybe. Listen, the honey badger is one of the most underrated animals in the animal kingdom because of how awesomely vicious they are. So, maybe a badger down the road. I mean, I have a couple pit bulls, so I wouldn't mind putting a pit bull on the line, like John Wick. But I feel like you can't have a military line without an animal companion.
Maybe what he'll do eventually, and just a suggestion, maybe he'll have like a nurse or a sniper from Australia named Kylie, and Kylie will have a Kawaka animal companion, which would be great. But anyway, we'll let Bobby mull on that for a few
mull it
years.
over.
Yeah.
I want to go back a second to your range story, because I have one very similar. So I have a mix of both modern and period era firearms, and I have a Thompson, and I love my Thompson.
Yeah.
The only thing bad about my Thompson is because of the gun laws in Rhode Island, I can't put the short barrel on it to be 100% accurate.
Right.
But I bought a World War II accurate era sling that they used on the Thompson, so I have that on my Thompson. I put the oil that they used on the wood. I have that on the stock, so it's patinaed the way it should be. But like, I'll go to the range and I'll shoot some of my modern day rifles, and then all of a sudden I'll take out this typewriter and just start typing away. And people, like, they stop and they look and like, oh, it's a Thompson, because it makes a distinct sound. They call it, the typewriter for a reason, because it sounds just like an old typewriter.
Yeah.
So
I've had the same experience with the M1 Garand. I mean, people, they hear that ping as the clip comes flying out. And they've all seen Band of Brothers and, Private Ryan and all that stuff. So they know that sound, and they stop what they're doing and look, because it just doesn't sound like anything else that's ever been made.
It's a very distinct sound.
Yeah. I have as part of this history obsession, I have a Webley Mark VI, the British revolver that breaks like a shotgun. The one that Indy runs out of ammo for in Last Crusade, but I have it for my love of Lawrence of Arabia. But it's funny to see how, you can't even get ammunition for that pistol anymore unless you have it, custom loaded. I've never fired mine. It's not in the greatest shape, but I want it it's a 1917 stamped.
Wow.
Webley. So I have it as more of a relic than anything else, but it's so funny to watch movies that are set prior to the Webley Mark VI. In other words, pre-World War I, in British colonialism, like Zulu or Four Feathers or movies like that. And the prop masters will always lean on using Webleys, even though those Mark VIs didn't exist yet, because the way they figure it, it's like, well, it looks Victorian and it is a old school revolver anyways. And those older pistols or revolvers are so hard to find, and nobody replicates them. So we're just going to go with this. It'll look the part, and I've always found that really interesting.
That is kind of funny.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see. Do we have anything else here? No, we don't have any questions. So I don't want to keep you too long, Bobby. I know we've been going for about an hour and a half. Oh, we do have a new super chat real quick. Oops, sorry. UT00BSUX0RZ. Thank you for the super chat. He says, as a military enthusiast, are you familiar with the Metal Gear video game series? Could you do a line of 6-inch figures or homages?
I am familiar. It was one of the first games I ever played on PlayStation. So I love the original Metal Gear. Listen, the characters that they developed for that game are kind of flawless in a way. Like, I remember when that game came out, it kind of is like the equivalent of what the Swarm is. So Metal Gear came out, real world military. He's more espionage, but then you had the Cyber Ninja, or I don't know if he's called Cyber Ninja or just a ninja, but he was just so out there looking, but he worked for the game. And there was something about that was just like, wow, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So, thinking about that now that you brought that question, I'm like, oh, that makes sense with the Swarm now. But no, Metal Gear is a great game. I'm not a big gamer. I don't own any video game systems. So I wish I had the time to do it because there's so many good games. Like, a lot of the new Metal Gears I hear are fantastic. I wish I could play them. I know, Michael, you're huge on Tomb Raider. Yeah. I would love to play the new Tomb Raider games. It just wasn't something that I had the time or got into. I've always been so busy. I just wish I did have the time. Maybe once, I kind of get the line going and it's a well-oiled machine, I'll break out some vintage consoles and start playing.
I was about a year late to the rebooted Tomb Raider because of the same thing. I never have time. And Melinda, has this running joke with me. It's a nonverbal joke that, normally I only carve out time to video game when a new Tomb Raider game comes out because I'm always so busy trying to do other stuff. But Melinda knows that's practically the only way to get me to stop working on something, like to relax and have some downtime. So she will scour the earth every Christmas and find me 1 or 2 video games that she's done through copious research that nail the Tomb Raider format without literally being Tomb Raider. And so like the last few Christmases, like I've spent the last few weeks playing Horizon Zero Dawn because the gameplay, the mechanics, everything is very Tomb Raider. I didn't know that. I never heard of the game.
Yeah.
There I was. But yeah, I'm like you in the sense that I don't play many games throughout the year. I play like 1, maybe 2. Like I played Ghosts of Tsushima because I love history, and that was a feudal Japan game. Like it wasn't monsters and crazy stuff. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Like unless it's Tomb Raider and I'm picking it up, I don't have time to play video games. So when they this past week, I guess it was Monday, might have been as early as Monday, they announced this big 25th anniversary Tomb Raider thing. I panicked because I thought, oh no, is there another game coming out? Because I'm going to have to play it. And I was almost relieved to find out that they don't have a game on the horizon right now. They just wanted to acknowledge the anniversary with some wallpapers and stuff like that. Like, oh, thank goodness. What's up, Melinda? Oh, sorry. Drew G says, I can't wait to get all these awesome figures. When does Wave 2 go into pre-order? By the way, the first 2 comics were awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Drew. I'm glad you enjoyed the first 2 comics. The issues 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 are going up on the store in a couple weeks. So you'll be able to get issues 3 and 4 and read more of the story. But so here's the what's going to happen with Series 2. So Series 2 is going into production shortly because I don't know if you caught the announcement at Joe Fest during the panel, but the pre-orders have been so fantastic for Series 1 that I'm able to take that profit and fund Series 2. So there will be no more crowdfunding. I'm not going to go that platform anymore. It's going to be all pre-orders through the site. And so I can fund Series 2 and pay for all that tooling and manufacturing. And then what I plan on doing is have Series 2 ready, kind of in the queue, and then the day the last box goes out the door for the fulfillment, of all the Kickstarters and the CrowdOx orders, I'm going to then put the pre-order up for Series 2. And because it's already going into production, there won't be this long wait, maybe 4 months, because we're getting ahead and we're getting it into production now. And all of the Series 2 parts have already been tooled already. So I tooled those parts with Series 1 so that I had them ready. So now it's just the manufacturing, putting the figure together, painting it process. So it's going to be, excuse me, a more streamlined process for Series 2 because it's important to get that out to you guys quickly so there's not that big gap in between series that come out. So then, and then hopefully it rolls into Series 3 the same way because I know the female figures are such popular characters that as the pre-orders are going in for Series 2, put Series 3 into development, and then it's all going to go continuously like that. And then I can end up hopefully being like a Hasbro or Mattel where we're putting out product consistently at that point because the line is doing so well and each line is able to pay for itself, the next line, the subsequent line. So that's the plan, and it seems to be working so far. So Series 2 will be coming sometime in the summer, the pre-order, and then hopefully deliver, at the start of the fall, and then we can roll right into Series 3 after that.
That's really awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing, Wave 3, especially because I know that with the way that the way that Wave 1 is already looking, I'm really excited to see how you designed the female action figures for this line as well. Because like we were talking with Tony a few weeks ago, and I was talking about how the figures you've already designed, they don't have that diaper crotch. They seem to have like an actual proportionate pardon the expression, but pelvic piece. Like it doesn't have that goofy kind of look to it where it kills the rest of the figure. It's like the rest of the figure looks great in most modern action figures, but you get to that waist piece and it's like dun dun dun, 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 like it's such a letdown. So I'm looking forward to seeing Wave 3 because Wave 1 is exciting. I mean, it really is.
Thanks. Wave 3, it's kind of one of those things I cannot wait to get to it because two of the characters, the female characters in Wave 3, were some of the first characters I developed, and they are some of my favorite characters in the series. And I know that when I shown them, like, people really got behind them, and it's a bummer that we can't get them out sooner. But it's all new molds for the female, so it's a lot of extra tooling. But we're doing it right, and it's going the way we planned. So Series 3, I think, is going to be a really anticipated big wave for the line.
Well, I'm looking over here and I'm seeing PD Dubs asking, Kevin Johnson says, Bobby, you got to get the rights to Valaverse as a fictional country.
Is this Commando? Because they use Valverde in several different movies, I think. It was like that running joke in movies of that fictional, I guess, sort of Colombian-esque country. But yeah, it was in one of my favorite movies, Commando.
Yes.
And then did they talk about it in Die Hard, or they talked about it in Predator? I know they talked about it in another 80s movie.
Yeah, it was like all the military guys in 80s movies came from Shermer, Illinois, and they went to fight in Valaverse. Like, it's this whole thing. PD Dub says, will Big Bad Toy Store and other vendors get out pre-orders the same time as the Kickstarter?
TBD. I know that when my shipment ships from the factory, Big Bad, they're getting their own shipment, so it'll ship directly to them. So they'll get their shipment at the same time I'm getting my shipment. I don't know how they're going to start processing orders. I know when I get them, I'm going to start processing them right away. So that's kind of out of my hands. All I could say is that it's going to leave the factory at the same time. I just don't know what their process is, but I'm sure if my stuff gets out first, probably won't be too far ahead. Or if they get their stuff out first, my stuff won't be too far ahead. It's going to be around the same timeline.
Somebody asked, Jeremiah here asks, Brian Dillingham said it was a Die Hard 2. And then Jeremiah Phillips asks, Die Hard 2 and Predator. Jeremiah Phillips asks, who is your favorite G.I. Joe? who is your favorite G.I. Joe vehicle? Mine would be Awe Striker the Love Bug, because he had a great theme song, and he saved all the Joes from Monte Carlo's race, if I recall. I don't even know what I'm saying. And then let's see here. Retroblasting, which is your favorite Spider-Man villain? Bobby, do you have an answer to that?
My favorite Spider-Man villain's a weird one. My favorite was Cardiac. He was such a cool character.
Yeah.
And it was one that once I took over the Spider-Man waves for Legends, I kept trying to get him in, but they didn't have the rights to do him at the time. But every time I pitched a wave, I put Cardiac in there. And
nice.
the rep from Marvel who would approve the waves, you'd get so mad at me. Say, how many times I told you can't do Cardiac? I said, I'm going to keep trying.
Yeah. He's a legit villain in the line or in the story. I don't know why they'd keep kicking him out. That reminds me of a story I heard. Agatha Christie, the murder mystery novelist. She had this description. It was like a 5-sentence description. I don't even remember what it was. It was like this 5-sentence description of a like a room or an atmosphere or something that she had put in a book, and her publisher said, no, just take this out. This series of sentences, you don't need it. And she was like, oh, she really liked the way she had written that description. So then on the next book, she put it back in, thinking that this time the publisher wouldn't catch it. She worked it into another book, and the publisher caught it again. She was like, oh no, I did take it out. And this went on for several books, like Cardiac did. And then finally, the publisher just gave up on the book. That was like the 6th book or something like that. And the publisher was like, all right, fine. Just promise me that I'll never see these 5 sentences again, whatever it is, if I let you through on this one. It's too bad that we didn't, get Cardiac, from that kind of repetition.
Listen, persistence wins battles.
Yeah, it really does. Brian Dillingham, I think this might be the last question of the night because I don't want to take advantage of Bobby's time. Brian Dillingham asks, if Action Force could cross over with any toy line, which one?
Oh, geez. Okay, so if that was possible, and I could pick any toy line, not modern, if modern or vintage, I would pick it. I would pick an obscure line. I would pick Silverhawks. Now, Michael's probably going to balk at this one because it's kind of.
I like Silverhawks as a concept. I love them as a concept. Please keep going.
So the funny thing is so I could say this now because someone else has the rights to it, Super 7. But about 6 months ago, I was looking into acquiring the Silverhawks license because I had an idea to do both, obviously the throwback classic figures, but I wanted to be able to get the rights to Silverhawks, but bring them into modern day and create a new modernized Silverhawks and bring them into Action Force as the Halo jumper teams. They're the guys in the air. So Silverhawks are the air fighters for the Action Force military.
Yeah.
And I had kind of this whole idea in this pitch, and then I hired someone to look into it, and that's when we found out that Super 7 had the rights to Silverhawks. So I didn't pursue it any further, but that would have been my license to go after, my tie-in. So that's something I would have liked to have seen a nice crossover with.
I bet you Warner Brothers sells them as a bundle now. They're like, if you take our Thundercats license, we'll give you Silverhawks and Tiger Sharks for $1. Well,
that's what I was told. I was told that they got Silverhawks in a bundle with Thundercats, which is why they sat on it and haven't done anything with it, because they didn't need to do anything on it right away because it was part of a bundle anyway. And that's kind of a bummer that they did that, because it would have been nice to. I think the problem is all these cool old niche licenses, nostalgic licenses, are getting swallowed up by all these companies. So there's really nothing left.
No,
it's like something cool like Silverhawks I wanted to do something with. Granted, Super 7's going to do something with it. Time will tell what they do with it, but it's a bummer. It's a bummer that you can't go after things you want. But I've got my eye on a few other licenses and things like that because, yes, I have my brands that I create, but I also want to bring in someone else's brand and do it justice and do something with it because it would be a brand I love.
Yeah, that's great. Just to answer that last question about Spider-Man villains, because I know that I forgot to answer it. My villain is more of an adversary. My favorite villain in Spider-Man villain, I put it in quotes, is Silver Sable. I like the fact that she was always kind of on the same side as Spider-Man, but they didn't they didn't see eye to eye on things, and so she could be a roadblock for him in the stories that she was in. I even collected her comic book in the 90s when everybody got a comic for a while. So Silver Sable would be my pick. All right. Is there anything else, Bobby, that you'd like to mention, a thought you'd like to express, something you'd like to say about Valaverse or Action Force before we say goodbye and end this stream for everybody?
I mean, I say it every time, but I can't stress it enough. I've said it. I literally have the greatest fans. I think the people that support the line and the company and me are so great and so loyal, and I love engaging with them. I love talking with them. I love that someone created the Legions of Valaverse Facebook page, which is the fan page. But it's like I love seeing how excited people are getting for the line and talking about, hey, what are you going to do with this figure when it comes out? Or, what are your orders? Or, hey, did you like this story in the comic? It's like, I can't get enough of that. Like seeing that develop, because when I came up with this line, I knew it wasn't just going to be for me. It was going to be for so many other people. And the fact that that's like resonating is like so awesome. The fact that I can do comics and people are excited about it. The fact that I can announce movie news and people are like, wow, this is crazy. Like, that's like a testament to what I've built, and I'm so thankful for it being what it is, because the gamble paid off. It was risky. I was nervous, but I worked really hard on it. I put everything into it, and I get so much feedback, and a lot of things that I do in the line are from fan feedback, and I listen to what people are saying. So thank you to everyone who's listening. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to the live stream. Thank you, Michael, for having me on. So, I'm just listen, it's an awesome ride for me to be on. So I'm just thankful that you guys are making it all possible.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to be on, and I know that this is going to be an increasingly fleeting opportunity as the line ramps up with all the things I've been seeing. Just don't forget us little people when everything gets rolling for you guys over at Valaverse.
Nope. I'll always remember where it all started, and it's always going to start with the figure line. The figure line's making this all possible, and it's something I'm always gonna work out. I hope to be able to hire people to take some of the day-to-day like company stuff off of me, so that I can focus on designing new characters and exploring the story and where we can take it. So that's where my real passion is. So I don't want to be one of those guys that owns a company and just kind of oversees things and looks at the numbers. I want to be the guy on the floor doing things.
Nice. Well, Bobby, thank you so much. Thanks to everybody in the chat. It's been an active chat. It's been a good result tonight. I'm glad to see that it was a lot of people showing up interested in this. The fans are doing the best work. Bobby is one of the biggest fans there is when it comes to toys, and he knows how to make action figures. So I'm crossing my fingers and hoping for great things for Action Force's new Valaverse incarnation. But guys, have a great rest. See, I almost did that perfectly, and then I messed it up. Guys, have a great rest of your Wednesday night, and we will talk to you later, and hopefully we'll have Bobby back soon as more news surfaces. So guys, have a good night, everyone. See ya.
Take care.